Boys, episode 22
Boys,
Prep Coach podcast. Ready to go?
22 episodes.
ready?
Scotty, you're back from Bali. We've heard that you've had a little bit of issues getting home. You got back home and to sleep at 4 a.m. this morning.
Yeah,
Up
yeah.
at
It wasn't
7.
wasn't the ideal trip home. Fair to say, I don't think I'll ever fly Jetstar ever again. But nonetheless, I'm just glad to be home. There was a big part of me that was worried when our flight kept getting pushed back. Fuck, if we get cancelled, like I'm gonna lose it. But we managed to get home, albeit at the very, very, very early hours of today. Well, technically, it wasn't even the early hours. It was just before, an hour before I'd normally wake up and get ready to go to work. So
Yeah. And I was just like keeping an eye out for as many like updates as to what you were doing. But all of your updates were obviously of your athletes because you never fucking switch off. So I was fucking stalking the missus, just trying to see what you were up to, man. So Lucky Jen was all over it and uploading photos of you half naked in the pool, which we wanted.
Yeah, I wanted to see tops off.
That's it.
Tops off.
That's what the people
Nah,
wanted, mate. And we had
not
to
really
get Jen.
not really a social media influencer or whatever. As you guys know, I like to just stay under the radar. Just that photo she put up, it's funny because people are like, "Oh, you must be having such a good time." That was like 5 minutes of my trip where I didn't have two screaming children like wrestling me like dinosaurs in the pool.
Yeah, man. I know.
And MG, you just came back from A&B Nationals in Sydney. How was it?
It was actually awesome, man. I seriously had one of the best days. And you know what? We know what part of made like it was an awesome show. The pro show was awesome. Awesome quality, man. I had such a good time. But I was shocked how many people came up to me, and I think you got a message, right? As people came up to me that from Sydney that knew about the podcast. And all awesome athletes as well, man. I had some great chats with some amazing competitors. And it was so cool, man, just to think that people are listening all over the country. But the quality of athlete that's around this country, and I'm not just talking about A&B, I'm just talking about the quality of athlete that we have in the country across all states is freaking awesome, man.
Yeah.
And all it made, man, when I came back, I was just more and more in love with the sport. Like I'm already obsessed with it, but like this season has just amplified everything I felt by 100, man. And like a part of it's like the connection that, the three of us have created. The podcast has contributed to it. Obviously, all of our rosters are like pretty full and everything's pumping. So just I'm just beyond motivated at the moment, man.
I feel your vibe, man. I feel your vibe for sure.
Yeah.
We did get a question from some of the people that were fangirling you, fanboying you.
Yeah.
So it was a good question, actually. We'll get to it a little bit later.
Awesome.
But we got some questions about Season A. Now people are thinking about Season A and what to do in Season A. So one thing that someone said is, do we have a list of all the Season A shows across all the federations? I'm starting to gather that now for myself because we're starting to put people's plans in place, lock in show dates. But there's no one big concise list that I think we all create them ourselves. I know I speak to some tanners, they create lists, other coaches create lists. I try to create a list. I know most of the federations, so like NBA, ICN, AMB, they're pretty much publicized all their show dates for Season A. So
Yeah.
the person that asked that question, we don't have a go-to resource for all the shows across all the federations for all Season A. The individual feds have pretty much publicized their show dates, and they're all around the April, May time period. So I think every weekend in April and May has a show. Some of them obviously clash too across different states, but pretty much, yeah, everything's ready to go for Season A. And we also have the Nationals for NBA in Victoria, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And ICN Nationals is in Sydney.
Yeah. Hey, and how we've got some amazing supporters and listeners. If anyone out there wants to create a list of every show for Season A across each state and send it to us, we will promote it out there.
100%.
Across all feds, right? It's like, how cool would that be?
Yeah. Some they won't have yet. Like IFBB doesn't put their dates out. There's like a couple of smaller feds like NBA, they haven't put their dates out, things like that. But most of the big ones, they've definitely put their dates out. So, so just have a look at their social media. They're definitely there.
AMB, April 23rd, guys. Get ready. Mine's
yes, ready. April 23rd for Victoria. And someone asked about Perth for AMB. being kicked off as the first A and B show for season A. Do you have any information about that?
Yeah, so obviously Jen's been working really hard to kind of get the right team of promoters across the country. Ones where we're all sort of on the same mindset and all gelling. We've got a really, really good team now. We've got A and B coming to Queensland officially being run now. We've got an internal announcement.
Awesome.
Not put on here just yet. I'll let Jen do that. But yes, Perth as well. So a couple of amazing people, 2 partners who are going to be running it in Perth. So big things ahead, man. It's going to be an awesome year, and I'm just excited to be kind of the middle show this year across kind of A and B's calendar. So I know last season for season B we always kick off on the 10th of September, but the opportunity to be in the middle this time is exciting, and it's kind of timely around what else is happening around that season, because you've pretty much got Easter weekend, and then Tony's running his Melbournes on the 16th, and then we'll be the week after that.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyone who's prepping for that season, there's going to be a good list of shows that you'll have the opportunity to compete in pretty much, 4 weeks consecutively. I'm not suggesting anyone should do 4 weeks consecutive, but I'm just saying there's a good pick and good opportunity to compete across season A in 2023.
Yeah, I think it's really good that the shows are so close together. It really helps the coaches kind of lock people in, and we get it all done and dusted within 4 weeks. So.
Yeah.
It's going to work out really, really good. Actually, a question that people asked was, how are we mapping out our seasons? So we've kind of spoken about it a little bit, and I know we posted a couple of stories recently about you and IMG, and someone asked a question about that. But Scotty, do you want to just confirm what you're doing? Have you locked it in yet? Do you know exactly what you're doing? I know we kind of spoke last podcast about shows potentially going to Bali, but maybe not now. But also divisions too. So do you want to let the cat out of the bag a little bit?
Yeah, so obviously I'm competing next year. In terms of the shows I'm going to be doing, I still don't. I know a couple of them that are there. I still don't fully know. I spoke to a couple of the promoters at the Nationals, and they haven't released it yet. But there's talks about putting on a pretty hectic pro show in WA. So. Ryan Fredericks has taken over the presidency from Sam, and so I know he's looking at we've got to talk more about it, but he was looking at putting on something that's meant to be pretty big to try and draw quite a lot of athletes to compete. So I think it would potentially be what he was saying after their state show they have in the day, and then they would run like a hectic pro show at night. So I would potentially look at that, and then I think Viv was even looking at doing something in ACT, but again, these haven't been finalised. They've got to dot their I's and cross their T's first. And then obviously there's the Nationals, which is it's at the Exhibition Centre, isn't it?
No, the ICN Nationals is here in Vic. It's not the Expo. They do have an Expo show, which is, I don't know if I should be saying, but they do have an Expo show, which is early in September.
That's right,
Nationals is, I believe it's the 22nd of October, or that weekend.
He hasn't decided it, because I think it was going to be dependent on when the Vic was going to be locked in, wasn't it? And then
the VIX is locked in. I don't know if I should be saying this, but 7th, 8th of October, the VIX is locked in. It's a 2-day show.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So
so 2 weeks later will be the Nationals.
Yeah, he said that it would be the week after the VIX, or the week that we just said, the 22nd, and then Bali would be the week after that, and then the Worlds, which are in Italy, would be the week after that.
Mm-hmm.
So the plan is, I think, to do that the pro show in Melbourne, but it just depends, because we might be heading over to the UK as well, and I was potentially looking at a couple of shows over there as well, which, depending when we go, would determine whether I actually did do some shows here in Melbourne in October, or whether I would do them in the UK. And then I'll do Italy, the Worlds, because we're already going to be over there.
That's awesome.
You obviously need me and MT at all those shows, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, bro.
Business trip.
Of course,
absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Just, man, how good would that be? As I was saying to Jen, to finish up, because Jen's family live in the UK, we can leave the kids in London and then obviously go to Italy without children, which would be amazing. And then I can compete finish up my season, and then, enjoy a little bit of Italy before heading back. That'd be pretty cool.
That's amazing, man.
That'd be awesome. And
Yeah,
MG,
because they haven't. The pro show is a little bit different in terms of, and this is the crappy thing, unfortunately, about competing as a pro. You just don't have that same wide scope of shows that you can do. Although I think I wouldn't even know when the NBA one is going to be, and I know that you can cross compete, but I haven't really thought about that, to be honest.
so I'll speak in a Stu, and NBA will be before the ICN Nationals, and remember NBA Nationals will be in Victoria, also in Season B. So the state show and the national show is combined into one, and I believe it's going to be maybe one of the later weekends in September.
Okay.
Yeah.
And ICM pros are allowed to compete as in the NBA Pro Show, aren't they?
Correct. Yeah. And if you get top 3 in their pro lineup, you become an NBA pro.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
There you go.
So we'll wait and see, and then as well potentially we were talking about it in our group chat. Maybe if there's an IFBB show that lines up, just to jump in and just see.
I can tell you, IFBB Victoria for Season B will be the weekend before the ICN Nationals in Victoria. So it's like the 16th, 17th of October. Yeah.
Yeah. See, and
discussions
it
with
just
people that have told me these things.
When those potential ACT and WA shows were going to be as well. So unfortunately, I don't have any set dates because I kind of have to just wait and see what unfolds for those guys. But the plan that I have in place doesn't really change anyway. Like I'll still start prep when I'll start prep.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
MG, you and me.
It's on, man.
What's the plan?
It's on. Well, we both obviously got a little bit of improving to do, and we're both understanding of what areas we need to improve. And like I suppose me and MT are a little bit different, right? I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's so far away." We don't see it like that. I don't feel like season B 2024 is so far away. I mean, I'm working week to week, even this week. With where my nutrition system's at the moment, and I'm training the hardest I feel like I've ever trained in my entire life. I'm pushing food. I'm hitting everything. And like this week, I lost 120 grams. All right, and it's like I need every week I can get to improve because it's such a hard game, the building game. So we're going to absolutely maximize the next 6-12 months. And me and MT are in the same block. MT's obviously just got to come out and finish his recovery, reverse diet properly, whereas I'm sort of peak off season already. And my appetite and my satiety would answer that for you. Like I'm full all the time. I'm at the point now for the first time ever where I'm putting meals down for the sake of putting meals down. It's taken me about this long to really, really feel like I'm struggling. So I've done pretty well to get to this point to not feel so full yet. But I want to say to everyone that's in a reverse period or in a recovery period right now, we'll probably get to this a little bit later. We were talking about hunger signaling early. Recovery takes genuine time. Like the first 12 weeks post my show, I could have deleted anything that was in front of me and not felt full, no problems, even though I probably was full and I knew that it was enough. So it's taken me up to this point to feel like, food is now a challenge. So I promise you will get there. And all the things that you feel like you want to eat will still be there. I promise you they will still be there. And then you're going to get to a point, where probably Scott's at right now, where you've been doing it long enough and nothing feels desirable anymore. Like, punishing a burger or a pizza is probably the last thing you want to do because you're going to suffer for it and you're not going to be able to put down, the rest of your nutrition commitments for that day. So I just want to say to everyone, be patient because there's a lot of people listening who are in that block or that phase at the moment, and it will get better. But yeah, I'm excited, man. Like competing next to you is something that I would say I've wanted to do forever, man. Like everyone knows how close we are and how, everyone thinks we're brothers and we've been best friends for a long time. So, the opportunity to not just stand on stage next to you, but live all the things that you get to live when you're prepping with someone who's so close, the training sessions, the eating, the steps, the missing out when you go out with friends. To have somebody else sitting in the same circle who's sacrificing the same things and you just look at each other from the other side of the table and give each other a little cheeky wink like, Like, we got this, man. Like, yeah, we know all of our mates are sitting around eating pizzas, but we're all right because we know that the bigger goal is far more worth it. And I think I said in my post, or in my story, which some people would have seen and not seen, like that alone and standing next to MT and competing together across a few different shows is worth more than any award or placing or title that I could potentially win. Just getting that photographed and having that memory for the rest of my life will be something that I'll be treasuring, man.
100%. I can't wait. Like, if we're not put together in the lineup, as soon as the pose down is on, I'm finding you, bro. I'm finding you. And we're going to stand together, and we're going to get some awesome photos on stage. I can't wait for it.
Yeah. For any judges that are listening, even if you don't want to compare us because we're on different ends or we're in different places, just please put us together so that we can just do it. Let us just do one round the quarter turns next to each other, please.
I know, for sure.
Then how interesting is it going to be for you, Scotty? Because you're obviously crazy close with us, man, and you're kind of going to put us through this whole thing, and then you're going to have to sit in the crowd, and kind of yell. Oh, you only have to say "Go, Michael!" So that's a good thing.
Go, Michael. That's it. You're done.
Go,
bro.
Michael. That makes it nice and easy. But how do you think it's going to feel for you?
I'm just as excited, man. I can't wait to get that shot where there's two shredded guys and I'm just in the middle like that, or like oranges or apples. Like, which one do you want? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, it'll be good. I mean, nothing would really change on my end. I mean, I'll obviously my goal is to make sure that you guys come at your very, very, very best, which no doubt both of you will. And then, like you said, you enjoy the experience, and then the rest is up to what 5 judges see on the day. But the biggest thing is obviously for you guys beating the physique that you last presented. You want to be able to. That's how I always look at it. Like, take a screenshot of what this side shot, that rear double bicep in 2020 or 2021, 2022, whatever it was your season, and then put up 2024, and then see what are the difference between 2024 and between 2022. And that is what bodybuilding is all about. It's celebrating that progression.
Sure. That's all I'm looking at competing against, is just trying to be better than what I was last time.
It's you versus you. And as cliche as it sounds, if you don't have that mindset, then you just won't last long, and you're not going to enjoy the sport for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but actually, we got a question about my mindset, so I'll get to that one in a second. But just going back on MG's point about there's not a lot of time, even though you think, okay, I'm competing in 2 years. For me, I think I posted about it the other day. I did in a story. It's like I got 3 to 6 months of reverse of feeling myself again, at least, right? Then there's 12 to 15 months of growth or improvement, and then the 6 months of back into comp prep. So when I think about it, it's like not a lot of time to do a lot of work and make a lot of improvements that I really want to make before I step on stage again. And I'm competing in 2 years' time. You've got people that are competing in 1 year's time. They did season B this year, and they want to do season B next year. And they're like, oh, it's so far away. It's not. Prep will be coming around very soon for those people. So, make sure you make the most of your reverse and your off season, especially if you need to make some improvements in your physique. Prep's going to be coming around real soon. And I've had these conversations with some new inquiries. And like, I just did season B. I want to do season A. I was like, hang on, let me just walk you through a timeline and show you how much time you have or how much time you don't have. And they're like, oh, I never thought about it that way. I was like, if you want to be competitive and make improvements, you need time. You need time. It's not just about jumping on stage every season just to jump on stage, for sure. So one of the questions I got asked, which was from Scotty Fitz, which MG.
Yep.
He said, I'd like to know how MT developed his strong mindset. It was, I'm competing next year and I feel like my mindset will let me down. So I had to think about this question because it came in a couple of days ago. And I thought, I want to break it up. And I break it up into a couple of components. One is the reason why you're competing. Is your lifestyle in the off season congruent with the comp prep lifestyle, right? And who are you competing against? Like why are you competing? Like, who do you think you're competing against is kind of the main things there. So the first one was about the reason why you want to compete. for me, I hadn't competed for 11 years. So all I wanted to do was jump on stage. That desire was above and beyond anything else that was going on in my life, any desire and temptation to eat out, anything. There was nothing stronger than that desire to jump on stage because it had been so long. So my willingness to go through absolutely anything was because I set that goal ahead of me that I hadn't had for so long. I've been wanting to do it for so long, and I'd put it to the side for so long, and I hadn't put myself first above other people, above my business, above clients, above whatever I was going through in my life for the last 11 years. So my desire to get on stage was so high. It was above and beyond anything that anyone could have thrown at me or any challenge I would have come across in prep. So I wanted to do it above and beyond anything else, right? So you got to want to compete for the right reasons, not just because everyone else is doing it. It's the new in thing. I've been training for a year and everyone's competing. So let me get some stage shots and compete. It sounds like fun, right? That's not going to get you through some of the tough times of prep. The next thing is my lifestyle outside of prep was completely congruent and aligned with the prep lifestyle. I wasn't a massive foodie. I have a really, really structured life. I love training. I love meal prepping. It's what I did day in, day out. Pretty much my structure and my lifestyle in comp prep was the same as my off season, not much different. So that wasn't mindset related. I guess I didn't have to have a strong mindset because there wasn't a massive shift from comp prep to off season. It wasn't like I had to change everything I'd done and put so much energy and effort into doing something completely different that I'm not used to. So having a lifestyle that's already congruent to what you need to do in prep helps you not have to struggle and have a super, super, super strong mindset and make a massive shift in your life, which requires a lot of energy every day to make sure you're doing something that really you haven't really done in the past and doesn't become natural, right? And the next thing was who you're competing against. I was competing against myself. My goal was to be the best person I could be, right? And that's going to be way more motivating, and it's not something that's going to come and go compared to if you were trying to compete against someone that was on Instagram or someone that you wanted to get back at. You're like, oh, I want to be better than that person in the gym, and they're also competing, and I want to kick their ass. That stuff's not going to get you through the tough times in prep because you're going to be like, oh, it's not fucking worth it. I'll just let them win, like whatever. But if you want to keep pushing yourself throughout the whole prep to be the best you've ever been, and that is the person that you're competing against, it's going to keep your mindset really, really strong because it's you versus you, and you need to prove to yourself that you can be your absolute best. And you're putting so much time and effort and energy and allocating this time to be your best and not worry about beating anyone else but yourself. So that's going to be one of the biggest motivating factors. If you're trying to compete to beat someone else or to prove to an ex that you can do it and you look awesome now compared to what you look like when you're with them or something like that, that stuff's fleeting. That's not going to last. That's not going to push you through the times when you're hungry, tired, have no energy, and you've still got to get steps done and you still got to train and you've got hardly no food left for the day, right? So they're probably some of the biggest factors that made my mindset strong. And also too is I'm a very positive person. I'm an optimist, and I like to look at the positives out of every situation. So that really helped my mindset too, is I never concentrated on the negative aspects of comp prep. And there's so many negative aspects. There's so many things you need to fight every single day. But if you focus on those, that's going to become your reality. And that's going to be the things that you're going to struggle with every single day because you're like, I'm hungry, I'm tired, I've got no food, I've got to try. If you just keep concentrating on the things you don't have and the things you need to push through and the negatives that are in prep, you're not going to last. Focus on all the growth that you're having in prep, all the positives that are coming out of prep. That's what's going to push you through. The negatives are there, recognize them, and then let them go. And then focus on all the positives. And that's why people say, like, how can you be so positive throughout prep? Because they're the things that I want to concentrate on. I don't want to concentrate on all the other crap because I could make Instagram posts about all the negatives and look for justification and look for reassurance and motivation from other people, but that's never going to get me anywhere. It's all got to be internal.
Yeah,
And,
and like you start focusing on that negative stuff, man, and we've all seen it with athletes, like just engulfs your whole world, man. And like
100%.
you want a surefire way to feel tired, tell everyone how tired you are.
Yeah.
You'll feel tired after that. It's like every time Scott and I would go past MT or would catch up for like a long black or something, it's like, hey, you feeling, man? Yeah, I feel fucking awesome, man. You know what? Maybe he didn't feel awesome that day, but he certainly wasn't going to tell us to, because as soon as he told us he's putting it out to the world, and maybe he'll start to feel it. And he was like, that's one of the things that you were just exemplary at, man, was like your attitude towards every situation. But it's definitely something that people should take on board, is like, think about what you're putting out there, because that's what you're creating, that environment for yourself.
Yeah, like I did feel awesome. I was never bullshitting anyone. Like I felt awesome. But if you would have said, is there any inkling of low energy?
Of
Do you
course
ever
there
feel
is.
tired? I'd be like, yeah, of course I do,
Of
bro.
course, man.
But I also feel awesome too. Like,
Yeah.
so all that stuff is there, but I just never put it out there. I never concentrate on it. So
Yeah.
even now, like coming out of the reverse, I don't have my energy back. Like I don't. My legs still feel heavy,
Yeah.
even though I'm eating so much more food. I know it's not there, but I feel better than I did in prep.
For sure.
Like I do. So I'm going to concentrate on the fact that I feel better.
Yeah, and
I don't
you
feel
know that
the best I could ever feel. But I feel
you
better.
know that you'll get there.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So that's the answer to that question. Hopefully that helped you, Scotty Fitz, because I know you asked it. And you always have us for support. And as I said to you, like you came to my show day and you were there and you were absolutely awesome backstage, Scotty Fitz. So I appreciate you. And I said to you, I'll be there for your show day and supporting you too. And I can support you along the way. You have us three boys there to support you. So if you're ever feeling down and out and you're struggling with a mindset perspective, you have us three boys to push you through for sure. And that's, you know what, that's anyone that listens to us at the moment. If anyone's ever struggling, reach out.
For sure, man.
We're all here to help for sure.
Definitely. Yeah, we're never going to turn you away. Like, don't feel like we have to coach you to like talk to us. Like, I've had heaps of conversations with athletes of other coaches, just like a bit of a pump up or just getting an opinion on something. And we love that stuff, man. This is literally what we live for. So
yeah, 100%. All right, let's move to a couple of little random topics that some people have asked. If I wanted to do IFBB bikini, should I look at an IFBB coach, or do you guys train IFBB girls? What do you reckon, MG? You want to address this one?
yeah, so I think having a coach who understands, one, the criteria for the divisions and what a winning look is in that division is far more important than where the bulk of their athletes compete. That's my opinion. So if you look at, let's just use Trimboli as an example, right? If you look at MT's page and you scroll through and you see that he's creating winners in relevant federations, in relevant divisions, that would hold far more weight to me than, say, whether my coach himself or herself competed in the IFBB.
Or is an IFBB pro.
Exactly. So
if someone's a pro doesn't mean they know how to coach.
It's it's something that, this is the thing, is like there's plenty of coaches out there who have evidence of results, right? And just winning yourself does not necessarily make you a great coach. And this is, there's also some great coaches who also have won great titles too. So it definitely goes both ways. But I would say I wouldn't pick my coach based on their successes as an athlete. I would look at their results as a coach. I would investigate their methodology. I would speak to past and present athletes from their team, and I would use that for my basis of whether I was going to go with that coach or not their status.
And also chat with them. Send them a message. See how they are. See what type of person they are. See how you vibe with them. See if they want to chat with you on the phone. If you message a coach and say, "Hey, I'm inquiring with you," and they don't go, "Yeah, cool. When can we talk on the phone?" There's something wrong there.
Yeah.
So chat on the phone with them. See how you vibe with them. Ask them some hard questions.
But like as an answer to your question, if you're looking at, say, one of my girls who might have recently done really well in bikini, if I was to put her in the IFBB same division, I'm smart enough to know that there may be some changes that I would make in terms of level of conditioning or muscularity before I'd want to put her there. So we're fully aware of what look is required, and we would coach accordingly.
That's a really good point, actually, because if you want to do IFBB and you go to a person that only does IFBB, they may put you in IFBB when maybe you're not meant to do it yet, because a lot of people don't know what federation they should do based on where their physique is at. So I know I've had some clients come across that did WBFF because they picked someone that only does WBFF, and they went into WBFF and realized they don't like WBFF, or their body didn't suit WBFF, but the coach never told them because that's all the coach coached for. So sometimes it's good to get a coach that coached for a lot of federations and can be honest with you, because they're not going to just going to put you in one federation because that's all they know how to do, right? I've had some honest conversations with people where they've said, I want to do X federation. I said, you need to have this personality type because it requires this kind of stage presence. You need to have this kind of structure and physique. Yes, you are suited to that. No, you're not suited to that. So, for me, I want someone to do a show, a federation, a division that they're going to be competitive in. And for the longevity of the sport, they're going to enjoy themselves, not think they should go do IFBB or think they should do ICN when they're not suited to it, and they go to a coach which is only ever going to recommend that because that's all they know how to do. So I think sometimes getting advice from someone that is more open to other things can maybe help you decide where you should be by them giving you their honest opinion.
Yeah. Awesome.
Good with that? Okay. Another one I got asked was, and this is an interesting one, and I see it a lot. Why do competitors get their pro card and then hardly ever compete? Most of them just disappear, and they just never compete again. What's the point? So, Scotty, you're a pro, right? You haven't disappeared. You're competing. Why do you want to keep competing? You got your pro card, man. Like, you're done. You're accomplished. That's it. Top of the world. Tick the box. Your life complete.
I think for a lot of people, I mean, I can only speak for myself. If I wasn't a pro, I was still competing because I love it. But I think perhaps for some people, when you win your pro card, you essentially start at the beginning again, because you've got to do your time and climb your ranks. To win pro titles is extremely hard because you're beating the best of the best. So I think for a lot of people, I mean, everyone's situation is different. I know people that perhaps have to put it on hold because they may have children or life commitments, which I get, and then they may come back to it. But for some people, it's an end destination. Like, they just want to have that. Maybe it's so they can stick it in their Insta handle that they're an ICM pro. I don't really know. But I think perhaps because natural bodybuilding has leveled up a lot in the last few years, and in the pro divisions, it's getting better and better and better because there's more athletes that are coming through. So I don't know, perhaps it's insecurity of maybe, I've just won my pro card and I've beaten everyone. And then if I do a pro show and perhaps I don't do as well, or I'm going up against people that are better, I don't know if that's their mindset. But I think for a lot of people, it's just they want to have that label. And then, that's it. I kind of think there should be perhaps a window, whether it's 5 years or something, that if you haven't competed or done a show, then you just forfeit your pro card, because that way it keeps you regular. Otherwise, if you're not going to compete regularly, then what's the point?
Yeah.
But that's my outlook on it.
I think, yeah, you're right. You're definitely right. Where sometimes people's life just changes in a different direction, and they no longer want to compete. And obviously we had COVID also too. So some people that were pros maybe have moved on. They've had kids. They've had families. They're no longer into fitness, whatever that may be. So they're just not competing anymore. I think that also happens. But I think it also happens too is some people get their pro cards too fast, and that's all they ever wanted to do. And they've only ever done maybe 1-2 shows or seasons. And they're like, well, mission accomplished. I conquered natural bodybuilding, or I conquered bodybuilding, so I'm done. Next goal now. So I think getting your pro card and doing it for the right reasons, and wanting to stay in the sport for the longevity of it, and not just stay in the sport as I need to get a pro card, and once I do that, I'm done. It's personal choice though in the end, right? Like, you can do what you want. It's up to you. They're your goals, right? But we're just answering the question of reasons why people maybe aren't continuing to compete after they got their pro card. Some of them feel mission accomplished. Some of them moved on in life. And I think some of them maybe, yeah, they've won and they don't want to go up against people that may beat them, or they're not ready to, or they need more time to develop to be competitive.
And if that's the mindset, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, to be able to say, oh, I just want to take 3 or 4 years to be able to just really make those improvements so that when I get in a pro lineup, I don't just make up the numbers. Like, I want to be on the podium. I want to be able to contend, and that's totally fine. So I think it's probably a mixed bag. There's definitely those that want it perhaps just to have it, and there's those that perhaps have life reasons. And speaking for someone who does have children, it definitely does get harder to pursue your bodybuilding endeavors when you have a career and a family and things like that. But just because something's hard doesn't mean that it can't be done. It just means that it requires a different element of attention, better planning. But yeah, I think COVID definitely did affect it. But I mean, we saw the standard of the ICN Pro Show was incredible, and I don't see it getting any worse. It's only going to get better. So I think what we had this year was really good. The year before, the pro shows weren't really pro shows. They were kind of just people that got their pro card and jumped it on stage 2 weeks later. But the pro show we just saw in Brisbane was incredible. Yeah. And I don't see how the one next year won't be even better again, and the year after that better again, because the standard just continues to level up.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, like I'm saying, man, like just as I said about the weekend, like seeing the quality.
Yeah. The A&B show,
both the bikini and the the men's fitness, was like, man, it was inspiring, man. It was like it's so motivating, not just as an athlete but as a coach as well, to know that that there is that good a standard. It's one of the first things I said on the podcast, though. Like, the quality was so damn good, and it should be something like, if you're chasing a pro card, you should be wanting to stand on stage with the best of the best and see where you stack up, and then. If you're in a lineup and you just won your pro card and there's 7 and you come 7th in your first pro show, guess what? The only way is up. Like, and eventually, if you can say that you have won on a pro stage, like, what an accomplishment.
Yeah. How motivating would it be to become a pro, do a pro show, and do really, really bad, and then know what you need to improve on, and now you have another goal?
For sure, man.
Like, for me, if I got a pro card, then I'd be like, okay, now I need another goal. Like, okay, so I'm the best amateur. I got my pro card. Now, what do I need to improve to be even better? Yeah, cool. I want to beat my physique that I just presented every time I compete, for sure. But if you want to have a goal of being competitive, I'd want to go on a pro lineup and see where I stack up, so that I know what I need to improve on again and again and again and again and again. But that's me, right? I want to stay in the sport for as long as I possibly can, and I get enjoyment out of doing that. Some people just have the goal of, need to get my pro card. Once I've done that, I'm done with this sport. It's not going to bring me any more enjoyment post that point. Everyone's different.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. We got a couple of questions, or 2 questions about post-comp and just struggling with eating, gaining a lot of weight, binge eating and things like that. Now, we covered that 2 episodes ago, episode 20. So we spoke about binge eating, intuitive eating, post-comp, and living a life in the off season, and how to tackle goals and keep your habits in place and be motivated in off season. So the 2 people that asked the questions about post-comp and post-comp binging, go to those episodes, because we cover a lot of things to do with that. But I'm going to nitpick out of those 2 questions, because both of them asked in those questions about gaining a lot of weight and now wanting to do a cut, right? So they're ready to be serious. It's X amount of weeks post-comp. They've gained all this weight. Some of them are back to their off-season weight. Now they feel miserable about how they look, and they want to do a cut, right? Tell us, Scotty, why would that be a really, really bad idea? And I'm pretty sure you're going to cover things like metabolism, hunger, adherence, and that kind of stuff. So let's have it.
Pretty much. Yeah, so it does happen quite a lot where for the last, say, 30 weeks, your goal has been to wake up in the morning, look at the scale and hope that the number is less than it was the day prior. And then straight away, the goal is to gain some fat mass, but perhaps you are gaining at a rate that isn't as originally planned, and that's as a result of just hedonic feeding, so eating for pleasure rather than eating to satiate yourself and to fuel your energy demands. And so when that happens, and some people do it, and I actually had one of my athletes, I won't name who they are, and it happens all the time. There's nothing to be ashamed of, where they just got a little bit carried away in the first week and were just eating uncontrollably, and it does tend to happen. And then saying, I think I want to just cut, I'll pull my macros back, and even volunteered that perhaps, we're doing some cardio. What are you doing? We haven't done cardio this whole time. Like, the fact that this has happened is as a result of physiologically your body isn't at a stage yet where you can identify when you're hungry. So unfortunately, when you expose yourself to highly palatable foods, so if you're eating out a lot as opposed to, like we advocate on the podcast, just giving yourself a few weeks, still eating more food, but perhaps prepping it yourself, not trying to fit this into your intakes and fit that, and just give your body the time that it needs to start to transition. You can't just go from all to just nothing. It doesn't work like that. So if you do that, say you're up 7 or 8 kilos in the first week, and then you're like, oh, maybe I should drop my food, I can guarantee you that when you do that and you restrict your calories, that you will have another binge, because it's just a cycle. And that's what happens, unfortunately, where people, they binge, then they restrict, then they binge, and they restrict. So this would come as a surprise to all the people, but this person was eating 3,800 calories and just didn't have any control. So the first thing that I did was we actually made a 600 calorie push on what they were eating. And you might think, well, why on earth would you want to give them more food? Because if we look at that, let's say that over the period of a week, 600 calories times 7 days is 4,200 calories. So that 4,200 calories is going to equate for around about 600 grams of mixed human tissue in terms of surplus that we're gaining. I would rather that than if you don't give them that extra food, or if you reduce their calories, they might have 2,000 one day, 2,000 the next, and then they'll have 12,000 the next day. After that, it'll be 10,000, and then 8,000, and they'll restrict again. But when you look at the net caloric intake for the week, it might be like 35,000, 40,000 calories. Instead of, you could have just given them a controlled amount that's going to be conducive to them getting to where they need to get to. So sometimes the best way to get someone out of their own way in that sense is to just say, look, we're not really at the right stage to be able to perhaps go out and just eat ad libitum and just eat what we want when we want. So we're going to increase your food. These are some recommendations. These are the foods you enjoy eating when you're in prep. Let's eat those foods, but more of them. And then just give me 2 weeks, and then let's see how you feel. And then journal during this time and tell me how you feel at the end of the day. I'm super full, increasing their fiber, things like that. They're tools that we have at our disposal as practitioners to be able to help people get out of their own way. Because if you do restrict, then I can guarantee you it will lead to another binge. And
Yes.
Whatever you've gained, unfortunately, you've gained some. That sucks. I feel for you. But the goal isn't to be shredded anymore. So you just sort of have to wear that. And I can guarantee if your weight does jump like 8 kilos, so like this athlete of mine, their weight even though we increased their food by 600 calories, their weight came down by 2 kilos that following week. Because majority of that food, well, not majority, that some of it definitely was fat mass, but there's definitely a lot of water retention, foods that are high in sodium, and also an abundance of food volume that has completely destroyed your digestion. So your bowel movement regularity is just completely, wiped. So there's a lot of food volume that's still there. And obviously, as we spoke about, water and sodium. So if you just give yourself that time, and then if you're like, oh, well, now I'm only 7 kilos up over the 2 weeks, that's not as bad. And then the week after, maybe you only gain another kilo, which is 8. And then over 3 weeks, 8 kilos is a net increase, isn't as bad. And then eventually, after 5 or 6 weeks, that food focus and that hedonic eating, it won't be there. And then you'll be in a position where, you can go out and not have to eat like an arsehole just because you don't have any control of your body.
Yeah, so we kind of discussed that in the last podcast, is setting yourself up for success during a reverse. Making sure that you keep all your comp prep habits, prepare your food, keep that same structure in place, try to eat the same food you had in prep, just more of it. if you introduce highly palatable foods, you're not going to be able to control yourself. Don't pack your cupboard with peanut butter and Biscoff and stuff that you haven't had, which are going to be super tasty. When you get one little bite of it, and even if you're trying to only add 10 grams to one meal, that before you know it, you're in the pantry and you finish the jar, right? So it's about not introducing food that you know is going to be way too tasty and you're not going to be able to stop any cravings and will turn into a binge. If you do go out, try to be conservative. Again, try to limit when you're going out, how much you're going out, and having your flexible untracked meals. Make sure that they are conservative, and it's not about the food, it's more about the company and the socialization and things like that. But what I want to answer in that question is, okay, now we're 4 or 5 weeks post-comp, we've gained way too much body fat, way too much, right? Why is it a bad idea to do a cut now? Is our metabolism going to be able to handle a cut? Are our hunger hormones going to be able to handle a cut? Are we going to be able to adhere to a cut?
Definitely not. So physiologically, you're still not going to be restored. Mm-hmm. So typically, however long you prep for, like half that time, and that's really usually how long it's going to take until you're back in a really, really good place. So if you prep for 30 weeks, you're looking at roughly around about 15 weeks till you're going to be feeling, pretty good again. There won't be any food focus. You won't have any of those diet-related perturbations that you do encounter when you're in the contest prep. But the amount of metabolic adaptation that we encounter is going to be individualized. So it's person specific and person dependent in terms of how deep down the rabbit hole you have to go with your calories. So that would influence how your body would respond to running it again. But rather, you just put your body through the absolute ringer. Unfortunately, if that's the way that it's happened, my advice when that does happen is we just have to wear that for now. At the end of the day, your body's not in a position where you might think, I'm just going to run a 3-week mini cut after 4 weeks of eating stupid. It's the worst thing that you can do because you might diet off 3 kilos if you're fortunate enough within that time, even though physiologically your body is no longer primed for fat loss. Yep. Because it wants to feel safe in an energetic environment again because it hasn't. It's been in caloric restriction for an enormous amount of time. So your body needs to feel safe again before it's going to allow you to start taking from that again. But if you do, all you're going to do is re-heighten and resensitize all of those things that you've been trying to address. So you might pull off 3 kilos doing that little bit of cardio and the mini cut, but I can guarantee you 4 weeks after that, you're going to go on another binge episode again because you haven't given your body what it needs, which is time and which is a consistent supply of energy availability.
Yeah. So metabolism probably won't handle it as well. It's not fully recovered yet. You'll try to do a cut. Maybe you'll cut some weight. Won't be as efficient as you normally would. It might be you have to dig a little bit deeper to take the weight off than what you normally would. Maybe cut your calories a little bit harder than what you normally would because the metabolism's not repaired and replenished where it needs to be. Say you do last it and you do adhere to it and you stick to it and you last for 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. Post that point, you're going to be back in the same position as when you finish comp prep. All those hunger signals, your metabolism's going to be in a shit position. You're probably going to regain all the weight that you just tried to lose, and you're going to feel miserable, where you could give yourself more time to recover, repair, and sit with the fat that you gained and just deal with the fact that you're just in that position. And then once everything's recovered and you've given yourself a little bit more time, maybe you're 12 weeks post-comp or you're 3, 4, 5 months post-comp, then do your mini cut. And it's probably going to be more successful than if you try to do it a month or 2 post-comp.
And the advantage to pick a positive from a bunch of negatives, if that is you, the advantage that you have is that by gaining such a large amount of fat mass immediately, if you can slow that down and then just gradually gain, if it's 500 grams or if it's 0.5 to 1% of body weight a week from there on after, you will recover faster than the person who just tries to gain 300 grams a week. Like I've seen on social media, people being like, 3 weeks post-comp and I'm only 1 kilo up, like everything's going so great. I would say, well, things aren't really going as great as you think they are, because if you're only a kilogram up, you might still look awesome in a bathing suit, but you're not addressing any of the issues that are going on internally. So all you're doing is prolonging the inevitable. Eventually you will gain that weight, and if it was me, I'd rather let's get back to feeling good again, and then rather than just dwelling on what's already been done, you might be able to, if you gain 8-10 kilos in the first 2 weeks, which is a lot of weight, but then you can slow it down, and over an 8-week period, you're only 14 kilos up. Is it ideal? Maybe not. That's quite aggressive, but it's not the end of the world. But then let's say another 10 weeks after that, you're going to feel amazing, and maybe you're 18 kilos up from where you were. But you might say, okay, well, now it's been 5 months. We're going to run a 4-week aggressive mini cut. We're going to pull 2,000 calories a day. We'll pull off 5 kilos in 4 weeks. And then from there, we'll slowly bring food up. That 4-week mini cut is not going to be enough in terms of an amount of time in a deficit to cause any serious diet-related perturbations that are going to result in you being super focused. You might be hungry at the end of it, but you're not going to have any of these physiological side effects that you get from a 20-week prep. So when it's like, all right, now we're going to just bring food back up slowly again, you're not going to be like, I need to go and eat the entire world, because all of those systems have been restored.
Yeah.
So when we look at the plan over a 6-month time span, it's not really going to matter. Versus the person who just goes slower. Yeah, you might want to look good in summer, but it just depends. Like, if you're really that obsessed with looking a certain way. If you are, then I would just say that perhaps physique competitiveness is not really for you, because if you just want to look good in a bikini, then why don't you just get yourself in good shape and then hover around the same amount of calories? Because if you want to compete and you're going to get into really, really good condition, it comes at a cost. And that cost of doing business is that you've got to gain some fat mass back straight away. And also, if you're trying to improve your physique, we've spoken about this before, the physique that you look the best at will never correlate with the physique that you perform the best at. And the physique that you perform the best at is the physique that's going to allow you to gain new tissue and to improve as an athlete.
Yeah.
So if you want to improve and get better, then, like, I know for me, the physique where I feel horrendous and I'm heavy and I get puffed walking upstairs at 105 kilos, I don't like aesthetically that as much as how I look when I'm 92 kilos and I've got abs. But what I can do in the gym at 105 kilos versus at 87 or 88 kilos or 90 kilos is chalk and cheese. And I know where all my new muscle's been gained. It's been gained when I've been eating 5,500 calories and doing the things that I don't want to do, but it's allowing me to make those changes. So you just have to decide if you're not willing to embrace that, and not everyone has to go to those extremes in terms of food. Everyone's going to be different, and this is probably more towards females, because I tend to think that perhaps they get a little bit more caught up, because there does tend to be a little bit more body dysmorphia with females, that you just got to embrace yourself, embrace your curves. If you're a little bit heavier and you don't look as great in your eyes in a bikini as what you did when you were on stage, who cares? If you can squat 2 plates and hip thrust 140 kilos, like, celebrate that. That's where your attention should be. And that's where, like, coaching-wise, something that I place a lot of emphasis on when we come out of the prep is, rather than worrying about what we're seeing on the scales, I put more attention to what we're seeing on the spreadsheet in terms of our periodization. Like, how are our numbers in the gym tracking? Like, are you getting more volume? Are you lifting more weight? Because if you can shift your focus from the scales to the numbers that you're lifting in the gym, mentally, it makes it so much easier and so much better, because now your focus is not what I see when I look down first thing in the morning. It's when I go into the gym, like, I'm squatting 3 plates today, or I want to deadlift 120 kilos, whatever it is, whatever your goals are. Yeah. So just shift your focus, and that will make life so much easier. And it makes the process and just competing so much better. When you're in prep, the focus is to get shredded. When you're out of prep, the focus is to get strong and to get jacked.
Love it.
Well said, man.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Let's finish off on one last question. It may take a little bit to get through. We'll see how we go. But this is the question that was asked to the Prep Coach podcast page by the fangirl that was there at the A&B Nationals and spoke to UMG. And it's an interesting question, actually. I'm going to read it out. So she talks about how she fangirled you. I won't blow your head up a little bit, but she talks about how awesome you are, and she
how you are,
how what?
How tall.
I'll tell you what.
How tight your shirt was.
I think it's a bikini competitor I spoke to this morning, and man, she had a cracker physique. I tell you what, she was close to taking that pro card as well. I'm sure it would have been her, but yeah, if it's her, incredible physique. If you're listening, amazing.
Yeah. She goes, I've just finished my season and I've tried one peak week using salt on my food and one peak week using no salt on my food. And I felt leaner and lighter on stage when I didn't put salt on my food. And I'm thinking of cutting salt out and only having it once a week on my untracked meal. But I wanted to get your thoughts on what the effects will be if I didn't salt my food during my improvement season. So, Scotty, because I know you like this stuff, she said she was leaner when she didn't use salt for peak week, right? So let's answer that question and reasons why maybe that happened, right? And I'm sure you're going to talk about what was her baseline salt and maybe it was different, right? So
probably. And also, like, what was the gap between shows? Because was she leaner because there was another week, or because she had another 2 weeks of dieting as well? Like,
one peak week used salt, one peak week didn't use salt, was leaner and lighter when I didn't use salt. So that was that. So maybe we can chat about that. And the next one was using salt in the off season. Should I cut it out now? Because it looks like I had better success and I was leaner when I didn't use it. So, Scotty, do you want to maybe chat about why she was leaner and lighter when she didn't use salt?
Without knowing the specifics in terms of what her intakes were, like when you say I use salt, did you have like 10,000 milligrams, and all of a sudden, like, you've had your entire weekly sodium intake in one morning? It's too hard to know. But
yeah, in
terms of not consuming salt, firstly, you take on sodium in majority of foods that you eat anyway. And we've kind of touched on this. Your body's smarter than what you are. So if you stop consuming salt, then you'll just stop excreting the same amount of sodium, because your body needs to maintain a certain amount of blood plasma osmolality. So the sodium concentration in your blood plasma needs to be at a certain level, because you need sodium for your muscles to contract. You need sodium to maintain adequate blood pressure, and we need adequate blood pressure to stay alive and not die. So I would not cut out salt completely. You don't have to overly season your food. I don't season my food a hell of a lot, other than my pre-workout meal and my post-training meal, because that's typically when I'll need it the most. But it also depends on how much food you're pushing in, bearing in mind that we do need sodium to help partition carbohydrate. Those glucose transporters are sodium dependent. But without, again, knowing the specifics and not knowing what her dosages were and what she used, it's hard to really know, because you could have not used a lot of sodium. Like, let's say that your sodium intake was 2,000 milligrams a day, and then you had 6,000 milligrams on show day, and you spilled because you were carrying too much water. Versus you may have just kept things very simplistic, which is what we recommend. We only typically advocate pushing in a little bit of an acute dose right before we're about to go on, as it does help with the pump and increase blood pressure. But I don't really have an answer for that, in the sense that she hasn't really given context on how much that she was having, other than saying that if you stop consuming it, full stop, then all your body will do is stop excreting it. And when you hold on to sodium, when you hold on to water, when you hold on to sodium, your body, basically where salt goes, water follows. So if you're holding on to sodium because you're not excreting it, typically you're going to hold on to more water as well. So in theory, I would say that they don't really align.
I think that if she was, the week that she was salting her food, she probably overdid it, right? And also the thing is too, is her potassium levels probably didn't change. So she was probably way out of whack.
Yeah.
And that's why she was maybe heavier and not as lean. And then when she didn't salt her food, the body just came back to a nice balanced level.
Mm-hmm.
That's why she was leaner and lighter than her fluid retention person that she was in the other peak week, right? So not salting her food wasn't the magic trick. Is probably the fact that she over-salted on 1 week and then went back to normality, maybe even a little bit less, and allowed that fluid retention to level itself out, and the body just done its own little balancing act, right? That's what I think. Yeah. Most likely happened.
Probably.
There wasn't any magic there in not salting her food. And then for the off season, we already know we need salt in our diet for just general function, for the pump, for carbohydrates to be shuttled into the muscle and muscle contraction. So I'd say it'd be a really, really bad idea to not salt your food, to avoid salt because you think that you're going to be leaner and lighter if you don't salt your food. Also, we want to make sure that we have that, potassium sodium balance, which I've spoken heaps about in earlier podcasts too. So I wouldn't be avoiding salt. Make sure you do.
We also wouldn't be linearly loading it either. So if you're saying that in peak week I used it, so if you haven't been seasoning your foods throughout your contest prep, then I wouldn't be saying, now it's peak week, start salting them up.
Salting everything, yeah.
No, because your body will have a level of fluid restoration where it's maintaining homeostasis. So again, our bodies are extremely, extremely intelligent. And so if we're not getting enough of something, then they'll try and take it from somewhere else. So if you've done things a certain way, I would say don't change them now, but perhaps right before you're about to go out, you can perhaps push in an acute dose. But again, without knowing the context, how much of that would be, it's just person dependent. But typically, you're not going to load for 6 days and then pull away because all you're going to do is it's like introducing a food that you haven't had before.
Yeah,
so we don't advocate for that. But otherwise, if you're wanting to train hard, you need to keep sodium in your diet. Like for a muscular contraction to occur, it requires sodium.
Yeah. So I don't want this person to think that the fact that they did no salt in that week and they got a better result, the answer is no salt.
No.
It's probably more about the change and the difference to what they were doing prior to the peak week, and the fact that 1 week was a drastic difference and the other week wasn't a drastic difference, so therefore you looked better in that week. Yeah. The trick is not that you shouldn't have salt because you looked better when you didn't have salt. It's probably more about the imbalance that you caused because of the difference that you did, the big difference that you did.
And if it was a massive difference, like were you also, you're not a big salt person, you started bringing it in, were you taking in a ton more water without even realizing
That's where I was going to go to next. Yeah, did you change your fluid intake?
Yeah. So that could be, without even realizing, oh my God, I'm putting so much salt on, I'm fucking thirsty as hell. Yeah. And now you've got all that. So that could contribute to the weight part because you said you were heavier or you said you were lighter on the other one. So you obviously noticed there was a weight difference there too, right? So if you felt your composition was still in check, because essentially you're just holding a shitload more water because you were so fucking thirsty because you've been taking in so much salt, which you weren't doing previously.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the moral story there is just don't try and invent the wheel. And peak week isn't the time to try new things out. Ideally, you want to be ready early enough so that you can employ a trial peak, a few weeks out. And then again, you can just test that protocol. But typically, we're never making changes to sodium other than keeping things very consistent and making sure that our sodium potassium intakes are constant throughout the week. And then right before we're about to go on, typically about 2 hours out, we typically just push in a little bit more sodium. Unless we're pushing in obviously more carbohydrate, and then perhaps we may need to increase the sodium intake because again, we spoke about we need sodium to help partition that carbohydrate. But we would also be increasing our water intake because we also require water to help partition that carbohydrate.
Yeah.
Cool. I think we covered it. I think we get it. But she can fangirl Michael some more and ask him if she needs any more clarification.
She's welcome. Absolutely welcome to talk to me anytime. I think I said a really cool thing I sent to you guys in the group chat, but there was someone who follows us, who's a supporter, who's a top athlete, great chick too, who was competing on the day. And I was obviously in the crowd and I was cheering for her because she's a follower. And she said she noticed me cheering because she could recognize my voice from the podcast. And I was like, that is the fucking coolest thing ever, man. Like,
I love that. So cool. Right, boys, let's leave it there. That was great. We had some really good questions. We covered some good topics. So thank you for everyone that asked questions. We can't wait to do another one next week.
Legends. Hey, thanks. And we're us three are due for obviously a catch up now that you're back from Bali and you're out of prep. So let's tee up a training session.
I'm keen. Yeah. Let's do it.
All right, Scotty Morrell, go to bed, man. Go to bed.
Couple more hours. See you, boys. Have a good day.
Take care.